You just hit play on Healthcare Reinvented. You're standing at the intersection of technology and healthcare. And I'm your host, Jonathan Kersting with the Pittsburgh Technology Council. So as Senior Vice President of Experience Design at Highmark, Stacy Byers and her team are transforming how we interact with health insurance through their groundbreaking digital front door app. So imagine an app that's not just a portal, but a personalized health companion that simplifies everything from scheduling appointments to discovering hidden benefits, all while keeping your data ultra secure. You got to keep on listening because you're going to learn so much about this app and some of the awesome work that goes behind it. Highmark is unleashing some serious innovation here. Learn how Highmark was able to bring 1.2 million people onto the digital front door app in just a year. And this is not just about transactions either. It's not just about checking claims. This is a comprehensive health ecosystem that connects members with mental health services, virtual care, wellness programs, and personalized recommendations, all in one seamless experience. Learn about user-centric design behind this app, how by constantly researching and adapting, Highmark created a digital experience that works for everyone, from a tech-savvy young professional to seniors who might need extra support navigating digital platforms. So bottom line, healthcare technology is no longer about complicated forms and frustrating processes. It's about empowering people to take control of their health with just a few taps on their smartphone. The future of healthcare is here, and it's incredibly exciting. Let's welcome Stacy to the show today and learn all about it. Stacy, happy to have you here joining us for the Healthcare Reinvented podcast. These are some of the favorite pieces of content that we do here at the Tech Council, because at the Tech Council, when we see this intersection of technology and healthcare coming together, it gets very exciting to us. And to know that we have the absolute leaders of this right here in our backyard through Highmark, I think it's really cool. So I appreciate the time for you to show us through some of the latest things you're doing around this with the digital front door. So thanks for being part of this meeting today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, always exciting to talk about.
Very cool. So first off, tell me about yourself real quick and what you do at Highmark. You get to have a lot of fun there, I think, at the end of the day.
I do. And I've been there for 24 years. So I just keep having fun. I never imagined that would be the case. But so I'm Senior Vice President of Experience Design and Digital.
Yeah.
I grew up in the marketing organization at Highmark, but a few years ago moved over into the product space.
Okay.
And I lead a team of digital product managers, designers, researchers who are all really helping to figure out how do we bring our omni-channel journeys to life. I have some of my team that specializes in the digital experience and the member digital experience.
Okay.
And then I have other parts of my team that are doing more broad-based customer research, our NPS study, are doing kind of specific project or solution level research to help inform our roadmaps.
Very cool. So how many people on your team?
About 85.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
you
it's
got
a nice
some
big team.
seriously smart minds building cool stuff, and you get to,
Awesome.
get to oversee it all.
Yes.
Okay,
Really
you
fun.
get to have a lot of fun. Now, when you joined Highmark 24 years ago, were you thinking this, you'd be 24 years later? Obviously, you're having some fun, and you feel like you're having a really big impact. So you've been there doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I started my career as an English professor. That was did. For the first 4 years, I was a writer and teacher. And just decided the academic life was not for me and quit and fell into the Highmark role. It was early 2001.
Yeah, come on.
And nobody really knew what to do. Like you couldn't go to school for that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So like I learned it as we went. We were all learning. But it was such a cool experience. So on my first project, get to help stand up a much more robust database-driven member portal. And we did everything. I was project manager, business analyst, designer, which I had no business doing, tester, all of it. So I really grew up and learned it end to end.
So cool. I love that.
Yeah.
You've had a tremendous journey. And along the way, everything that you're doing is coming towards making sure people can connect with healthcare and be healthy.
Yes.
For crying out loud, which is just so important. So I think about how much has changed over 24 years. You could probably never imagine 24 years ago what you guys are doing now that we're going to talk about. So that's also really fun to have that perspective.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
It is pretty amazing, right? Because I can think back to when we started doing social media and just trying to figure out how do you interact in that world. We built our first app and we're going like, all right, this is a desktop, but this app thing might be interesting
might be
because
a
people
thing.
have healthcare questions when they're not
Right.
at their house.
What was your first hashtag?
Yeah, good question. I do not remember that. But yeah, it is exciting to see how technology has advanced and the opportunities and possibilities. And then I think
Yeah.
it also raises expectations, right? Because as more consumer-oriented brands really start to lean into technology and solve problems for people in those spaces, they're setting their expectations for healthcare against the bar that is created by financial services and hospitality and retail and that
So
kind of thing.
true. I never really thought
Yeah.
about that way, but
Yeah.
because we have these other experiences through these
Yeah.
other industries, and you're like, wait a second, my healthcare should be the same way. I should be able
Exactly.
to pull an app up and sign in to see
Right.
the doctor or schedule
And
an
when
appointment.
it's not like that, then it creates all sorts of friction and
Right.
frustration,
my
and
goodness.
then can impact the way people engage with their health, whether
Well,
they go to the doctor. Because if it's
totally.
too hard,
Yeah, you're kind
I'm
of like,
not
yeah,
going.
I don't want to deal with it as far as
Yeah.
that goes. Yeah. So tell me about the digital front door. Obviously, there's so much to unpack on this, but if you
Yeah.
would just give me just the key overview of what this thing's about and obviously why it's so important for Highmark to have this front door.
Yeah, it really grew out of this kind of hard reality that most of the healthcare experience is super fragmented, right? And then the digital aspects of the healthcare experience is fragmented. And so it's lots of different apps, lots of different websites, lots of different login IDs. And if you think about it, an employer might take special programs, and we've historically had this situation where every one of those special programs that an employer would purchase from us to provide to their employee population, those were all separately branded. So it didn't really look like
No
it came from
consistency.
Highmark.
Right, yeah,
There
it could
was no
look very different.
consistency. We had to have a separate login ID. You might not know it existed. Getting the communications out to people about how it worked and how to use it was just really complicated. And when we started to work on our living health strategy in 2020, we were really starting to think about how do you make the healthcare experience less burdensome for the customer and the clinician, right? And that meant, again, taking some of the friction out, making the experience more seamless, giving them more time so that less of their time is used on administrative stuff and the hard work, and that it could just be focused on how do I take care of my health. And so we knew that digital was going to be a really critical channel to help take that burden away from customers and from clinicians. So we said it's time for us to really create this digital front door that's going to bring all of those previously disparate solutions together under a single digital front door so that then you only needed one login ID. You could easily see what was all available to you and quickly access it if it was relevant. And then it created another really kind of unique opportunity for us to start to personalize. Because if you're bringing people to one spot and you have all of the data that you have about them, about what their needs are, what their wants are, you can start to then really make sure that it's tailored for them instead of a link farm to lots of stuff that isn't super relevant.
Yeah, that's what's so important. It's that streamlining. And I just think about how complicated it is to do that.
Yeah.
Especially that while you're doing that, the technology continues to evolve.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
can be working on something all of a sudden, well, they're not using that anymore. What?
Yeah, and you know what? That's the other thing that's so interesting about some of what we've done with our digital front door, My Highmark. Historically, a lot of our member digital experiences were very much focused on the healthcare transaction or the health insurance transaction.
Totally.
So I need my ID card, did the claim process, can I go to the doctor, and which one should I go to? Because there are so many clinical and wellness capabilities that your health insurance card gives you access to,
Exactly.
no
And
matter how you purchase that coverage.
For sure.
We felt like this was a really great opportunity for us to bring some of those things together. So maybe you start with that transaction. You come in to see if the claim paid or find your new doctor, but that, hey, I got access to this mental well-being program, or by the way, I could go to get a virtual care visit instead of a brick and mortar doctor.
Exactly.
So trying to present those things in the context of some of these more transactional experiences and guiding people to the other things that they have makes it a really special experience.
I never thought about it that way, but it's 100% true. Because I think about my own experience using it. Because here at the Tech Council, we are Highmark insured, and we love our insurance. It works freaking awesome, for crying out loud. And it is true that like when you first roll through it, you maybe use it to make an appointment. And then you get some results back. So you're like, oh, I can actually check my results. So you get brought into it kind of sometimes stage by stage. If you're not like a super curious person that likes to go into an app and just see everything that's in there.
Yeah.
Then I also
and
think
most people don't.
Exactly. Okay, good. Because sometimes I feel like I'm this like digital loser, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't look for all the features and stuff like that.
No.
So the other thing I think about is you mentioned that you start realizing you have benefits that you didn't know that you had.
Correct.
A lot of times when people get their benefits, you get the brochures, and some people don't even pay it. I'm just as guilty. You can see the stuff like, whatever, day's busy, and you're not thinking you're ever going to need anything. But when you get to my age, you start needing stuff. So
Yeah.
it becomes a thing. And so the idea that it's there so you can really fully leverage all the benefits that you have.
Yeah. One of the things we've learned in a lot of our research is that people think about their insurance at the moment that they enroll.
Mhm.
Let's just say your employer group and it says you've got to get enrolled in October. They don't think about it till the ID card comes in January.
Exactly.
They set that aside and then it's, oh, it's April and I need to go to my doctor.
Exactly.
What do I do? How do I get to that website? What's the process? And so some of what we're trying to do is to eliminate some of those moments where it's just a black box, right? So do more to engage you up front so that we know, okay, you enrolled, let's onboard you into this experience so that you're ready to go on January 1 when you get your coverage. And by the way, when you're early in your coverage, these are the kinds of things you want to think about. So using a lot of text-based messaging, email messaging, and that type of thing to really start to get people used to what it is that's available so that when they need it, they know, right? And they don't have to go digging for some paper booklet to figure it out.
100%. And I'm also thinking there's a bunch of HR managers out there
who hopefully
they're not getting that like quick little email that's like, where do I find?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Making a lot of people happy with this.
Yeah,
so I think that's awesome. And the other part that I think that people don't think about is that the clinicians have such an advantage because you're streamlining things for them as well too. So they can do the things that they want to do, work with their patients, not fill out the forms and the stuff you got to do. Because I think people realize that when you go to see a doctor, they see for 20 minutes, there's probably another 20 minutes or more of paperwork they do afterwards.
Absolutely.
And that's time they're not seeing patients.
And
the best use of their time isn't filling out paperwork. I mean, these are really smart women out there that know their medical stuff.
That's not why they went to school, to fill out paperwork. Yeah, and we also know that they do that in the evening, and it's called pajama time.
Oh.
And so the last thing most of us want to do when we leave work is to go do more work on our couch. But that is the reality of a lot of clinician experiences and some of the things we're really trying to change.
I understand why their handwriting is so sloppy. It's not just the prescriptions, it's everything as far as it. Really cool stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the technology that goes in to make this happen. So when you open this app up, you're able to schedule the appointments, you're able to access the mental health services or the sword stuff, which is really cool. We all like the sword stuff for the physical therapy and everything like that. And I know a lot of times you work with outside partners, of course, because you were able to take their solutions and integrate them in and customize them. You got many success stories around that. So give the listeners a little feel for how you've been able to make this tech work. And
so maybe I'll give you a little bit of the history of how it came to be. So we were originally going to build this experience ourselves. We were partnering with Google, and Google kind of looked at the set of work and said, hey, we think you need an accelerator, right?
Gotcha.
Somebody to really help you bring some of this front end together. And that's how we met League. And League is the partner that we work with primarily to build that front end experience. But
and that's their bread and butter. This is what these guys do.
Is what they do.
So being able to work with them, you can do this faster.
We had lots of capabilities out of the box. What was also interesting, at that time, League didn't have any of the health insurance transactions. So they are a Canadian company.
Right.
They really weren't working. They were working in the health care and health engagement space, but not in insurance.
Oh,
and
I didn't know
not a lot in insurance anyway at that time. So we agreed that we would partner together and take a lot of the capabilities that we had built over the years at Highmark that were those more transactional things. That we would also bring a lot of our existing partners and new clinical partners to the table. Our virtual physical care capability, which is powered by Sword, our virtual care delivery powered by Amwell, right? Some of those other capabilities that we had those partnerships and could start to do some of those integrations. So we really helped them build out what My Highmark is today so that it's got all of that wellness and engagement content and the journeys that League provides. It's got the insurance transaction that was really our specialty and sweet spot. And then it brings the best of our partners to the table in a really seamless and integrated way. And it's just been super interesting to even go from a world where maybe we had single sign-on and in some cases we didn't, to having much deeper integrations to the point where we are working on various native experiences and leveraging those partner APIs so that we can better incorporate information in context so that it's not just always I'm going to click this link and I'm going to single sign on. And still the single sign on was leaps and bounds ahead of what we had previously.
Yeah.
But we're constantly trying to figure out how do we continue to better integrate it and just make that entire experience more connected and more contextual.
Yeah. And that's something, as I keep mentioning, that I know the technology keeps evolving. So you have to keep up with that. And at the same time, like it just creates then more opportunities to provide a better experience. So it's like, I can see why you have so much fun because you're always seeing a new way to do something different. It's never the same day twice.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like the job will never end, and that's good. We don't want it to.
Yeah, and the other thing that's super cool is the technology is now changing in a way that like it makes what we do faster, easier. You could do more, and it's super fascinating to think about where things are going in terms of like digital assistants and that type of thing, that I think are going to get us to a world where you're not always just going to an app to transact or to interact with a brand.
Yeah.
You're actually, when you think like Amazon has done this incredibly well, where, Alexa tells you, hey, it's time, or this thing that you always buy is on sale. And you can just say, hey, add it to my cart and buy it, right?
Exactly.
Like that kind of seamlessness, and that technology is out there now. And so the faster we can in healthcare take advantage of that, figure out how to adapt, the better we're going to be able to serve people's needs.
Yeah, so the future just seems so interesting in this. But I know that as you pursue these things, security and privacy is always like the most important thing, because when you think about what's going on with HIPAA compliance, there's nothing more private than your health, right?
Yeah.
And so having to then balance that as well, too, it's got to be just such a task.
It is. And I think we're doing a bunch of things to just make sure that everybody's information is protected.
Of course.
And it's an ongoing journey, right? Because the threats keep getting harder to manage.
Yeah.
They're evolving. But things like multi-factor authentication, biometrics, trusted devices, all of those things that people are very familiar with from financial services and those adjacent
all that
experience.
It drives the healthcare experience. That's so cool.
We're really evolving how we make sure we notify people when, their account has been accessed. So we're working on some new capabilities there.
Nice.
And then looking at a lot of improvements around things like trusted secrets or authenticator-based apps. We haven't gotten those implemented yet, but again, because we know that technology is constantly evolving and the threats are also constantly evolving, we are always looking at the latest and greatest to protect our members' information.
Yeah, it's just so important. That's why I just love having this type of a conversation, because I'm learning more. These are things you're working on now to move things forward. Before we jump into some of the outcomes and impacts, because I know I'm really excited to see the engagement of this. So I'm sure this is something that's been very popular. I'm very curious from the clinician side of things, like when they're using this, how are you helping them to save time and things like that?
So it's interesting. My Highmark in our digital front door is primarily a member-facing capability. There have been a lot of other things that we've been working on from a technology perspective for our clinicians that get integrated into their existing experiences. Out of the gate, we did some research around this idea of a digital front door for clinicians. And what we found was the clinicians didn't want yet another layer over top of the applications they were already using. So if you think about their EMR, often MyChart and Epic have the kind of dominant hold in that market. They wanted capabilities to be really integrated within the experience that they were already using. So we've done a lot of work on what we call an interoperability. And so taking certain programs and making recommendations about the availability of those programs to that member, but presenting it through the doctor's Epic interface. So imagine you're my doctor, we're talking about whatever kind of challenges I might be facing. If I'm a Highmark member and I have access to our smoking cessation program, that prompt will come to the clinician through their Epic interface.
So they can see the things that are available to the patient.
Hey, Stacy has this. If she's eligible for it, do you want to enroll, Stacy? And then if I said, yeah, I'm willing to enroll, I'm going to get that text message follow-up that says, hey, you enrolled in our smoking cessation program. Here's how you get started. So those kinds of things help our clinicians. And then I would say the other big thing that is transforming the clinician experience is ambient listening and AI to do the transcribing.
That's the stuff that keeps doctors up at night.
It does. And so there have been a lot of different pilots in that space that Allegheny Health Network, for instance, has been working on the Highmark side of the world. We actually just implemented a capability called Laguna AI, and it is basically
That sounds cool.
yeah. But it is basically an ambient listening technology that will help the care managers who are assigned to our members who maybe have more complex chronic needs. It really helps them both prep and manage the calls that they are making in the transcripts, and it's saving those care managers a lot of time. And so they're wild about it. We piloted it, and now we're rolling it out in a more expansive way across our larger set of care managers. So it's pretty exciting stuff to think about, just freeing up some of their time so that they can be more dialed in
That's what it's
to
all
the
about.
conversation.
Yeah, totally. This just fascinates me 100%.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, I'd just love to know, like, how are Highmark members engaging with this now? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, it is so interesting. We had 1.5 million of our 4.1-ish million eligible members using our legacy experiences. And it took us 20 years to get to 1.5 million of those members, using that. So it took us a long time. My Highmark experience has been fully in the market since January of 24. So just a little bit over a year. Yeah. We didn't even shut down the legacy experiences until April or May of last year to give people a long transition. We don't want that to add extra friction. But since then, we've gotten 1.2 million activated into the experience. So we're almost where we were in the first kind of 20 years-ish of our experience.
Amazing. Were you hoping for that kind of a number?
We were actually hoping for more. My goal was get to 1.5 in a single calendar year.
Well, it's pretty close, I would say.
We've gotten close. And I think some of the things that have really helped, like the January open enrollment cycle helps. We got a lot of additional messaging out in December of this year to bring more people in. So we definitely saw a big spike in January of this year. And what is also interesting is we're looking at better ways to help make sure that we're broadening that funnel of people. So, of course, we want to continue to build against the 1.2, the 1.5, and get way more of our people in and taking advantage of all of what My Highmark has to offer. But to some degree, a lot of that starts with that onboarding experience. So you can't just assume if you put an app name or a web address on an ID card
that someone's going to go to it.
Somebody's going to go to it,
I would say
right? They go to it when they need something and they Google Highmark and they're like, oh, where do I go to get this?
Right.
So we're doing a lot more, especially with our marketing team, to do more outreach. And then working, for instance, with like our sales team to make sure we have people's contact and preference information and permission to reach out so that we can, again, reach more people and take advantage of those moments when they're open to learning more, which happen at enrollment, what happened when the ID card comes, and those types of things. I think we'll continue to see a growth in the engagement. It's as anything like this, right? When you think it's like you use your healthcare when you need it. It's not the first thing you think of every day. It's not like my Aura Ring where I literally log in the second I wake up each day.
See what's going on.
And I'm a repeat user. So we're working on some of those engagement tools.
But I'm very impressed. If I think about 1.2 million, you said?
Yeah.
In the course of a year?
Yeah.
To break that down by day, that's a lot of people creating a new slot in a server somewhere.
Yeah, because it's like very cyclical. It's like January is a big month. July tends to be a big month. December is very low. Like people are doing their holiday things. They are not logging on to their health insurance website in December, except to check their progress against the deductible sometimes. We do see a lot of
that as well, too.
A lot of that in December. People want to make sure they get all their stuff done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming as you're putting these things together, this is tricky work. You're learning a lot along the way. Any key takeaways as you've been going through this experience?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's been interesting as we've been working with League, right? Learning how to work together, really partner to build a solution that fits both of our visions of how this kind of experience should work. I think one of the other big learnings for me is just this kind of balance between how to serve exactly what we know the users need and tell us that they need, and then balancing that with what the employers are looking for.
Okay. Yeah, there could be a bit of a gulf between those two things.
Yeah, there's a little bit of tension sometimes, and things that, frankly, you absolutely have to have for your employer group are not the things that your members are saying, fix this, make this better. And so we have to have the right kind of balance. And it's the same thing anytime you're working with kind of internal business users. And I'll give you one example.
Yeah, please do.
When you are porting over a legacy digital experience and you're doing an inventory of all the stuff that was there,
Okay.
you will find things that you go, why is this here?
Really?
I don't
That
like,
makes sense. Yeah,
how
there could
did
be
this
some.
get here?
Yeah, how this
Well,
file end up over
10
here?
years ago, somebody wanted it, needed it, thought it was a good idea, whatever the case might be. And if somebody still believes that to be the case, they may have a very good reason for thinking that needs to be there. But when you think about bringing an experience together like this, you don't want to clutter it up with a whole bunch of stuff that people don't use or maybe say that they don't need. So you have to balance maybe an internal person's desire to have that thing out there in the world of my Highmark with, hey, is it going to actually add value to the experience, or is it going to distract? Is it going to add a lot of clutter? How do you tuck things into the right spaces? Lots of people might say, my link is the most important link. I want it on the landing page. But you have to be really careful on a mobile device. The real estate you are working with, you have to be really precise about how you do that. And so I think those are just the learnings, how to continue to understand what the end user needs, balance that with the internal needs, balance that with the employer needs, and then make the right kind of trade-off decisions, because there's not ever one that it's like, yep, that's the
You're not going to make everybody happy.
answer. Yeah. And so you just have to constantly figure out how to negotiate, how to be data-driven. I think that's an important part, right? Like, how do we use our research? How do we use those customer insights? How do we look at utilization to truly understand and have an open discussion about some of those trade-offs and priorities?
Do you ever get feedback from users themselves that would be like, my goodness, this works, this doesn't work, or I have an idea? Because sometimes I have ideas for things. I've been through certain experiences that I think were like weird, and I have what I think, because I'm such a smart guy, quote, quote, then I'm like, this can be so much better if you did it this way. Do you get that?
All the time.
Cool.
We do. And that's what's really cool about also leading a team that does not just digital research, but broad-based research.
Yeah.
We do a very specific survey on the My Highmark experience, where we're asking people, why did they come to the site?
Okay.
What did they do? Were they able to finish that task? So we have things like CSAT, transactional NPS, and then open-ended comments that we're looking at. And all of those things become inputs to our roadmap. So they help us start to understand, here's where people are having challenges. We have performance dashboards, so we understand where people are using certain parts of the experience, where they're not.
Yeah, totally.
We can start to investigate why maybe they're not using certain things and make decisions about whether it's placement or the capability itself. We understand where there are those points of friction. So that is constantly informing our roadmap. The other thing that is pretty cool, my team does our broad-based Net Promoter Score study, which is way more than Net Promoter Score. We've actually mapped that study to a lot of elements of the journey and tasks that people have. So we know out of that broad study who's called customer service and what's their NPS, who has gone to My Highmark and what's their NPS, what's the CSAT on these different tasks. Did you have a better experience if you were trying to find care or not? So we have a really great understanding. And because we're living in an omni-channel world, it's important for us to not think about just people's digital experiences. The digital experience is a sliver of an overarching healthcare experience.
There's a point where they're actually going into the office, or they're getting tests done.
Or calling the call center. All sorts of different moments and touch points that they can have with our brand. And all of that matters. And I mentioned before, I sit in the product organization, and there is a whole team of product managers that have accountability for the omni-channel journeys. And so what's great is we're able to partner with those product managers to say, here's how we can think about digital as a way to help solve the problems. Here are the insights we have from all of these studies that we're doing, the broad-based studies, the specific digital experience studies. And then we'll go out and do research into very specific problems that we think we have to solve. So one example is we've really been interested in understanding seniors and technology.
That's got to be so fascinating.
Yeah, and what are their needs? Where might they be able to adopt easily? Where are they willing but maybe need some help? And so we did some research with some local foundation funding over the last 18 months to start to understand that problem space and then develop ideas for what we might do to help us address some of those needs as a broader organization. They're not all digital things
That's
that
okay.
we would go do.
At the end of the day, it's making sure that a human being
Gets the help they need.
Get the help that they need.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that you're recognizing that older folks can have a hard time engaging with technology because it's just not what they're used to.
Exactly.
And so being able to look at where the pain points are, stumbling points, you can fix them so there's less friction.
Yeah. And honestly, things like accessibility, usability, we've done a lot of work in that space to look at even mobility. People who have low vision, low mobility, and you're using a tiny little phone and not just looking at it from the perspective of how are we compliant, but truly, how are we making sure that this is an experience that is accessible for all?
I love what you say that it's not just about compliance. Compliance, you mean a level, but that may not be enough.
Exactly.
And so then you're going that extra mile to make sure that, you can use
understand it
and not get frustrated by it. Because last thing you want is someone being frustrated with something, especially when you think about it. So many times when people are engaging with this technology, it can be a stressful part of their life where maybe they're diagnosed with something or they're not feeling well. So you have that other level of stress that could just compound things. Yeah. So I love that you guys are going this extra mile like that. That's amazing.
And it's also really interesting. There's a lot of research that says when people have a health event, their comprehension actually goes down.
It has
to. So things like your reading comprehension and levels can go down. And again, I'm sure your technology capabilities probably are affected by that.
They go right with it. I mean, just because you're almost shaking sometimes, right? And so you're just like glossing over stuff because you're just panicking. And so your brain bloods another part of your brain. Something like that. I don't know. But that's the interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. This conversation has my mind blown a little bit because I have learned so much today.
Well, thanks.
But what you guys are doing out there, and it's really like you've just begun because the journey doesn't really end because of the way that technology is evolving out there in this day and age. But the fact that you guys are so committed and have this really big team to keep after it is so amazing to me.
Yeah, I think it's a really important shift that we've made over the last couple of years. I will tell you back in I think it was 2011, 2012, hired our first digital designer.
So
like there was one, and then there were two a year or so later. And so to be able to leverage the talents of very strong designers, very strong researchers, I think has helped us create a better product. When you don't have those insights or when you don't have people who are specializing in how do all of these things connect, you can really miss the boat. And I think having been here for as long as I have, I've certainly seen the transformation in the quality of what we can do. And then I think I've seen this shift in the attention of the whole organization, because sometimes what you have to do is you have to put the information out there. And so by having things like a Net Promoter Score study and that deep understanding and those insights, you can really start to get all of your organization on board and understanding what it is that people need and why you would make certain decisions about your investment and your priorities that can really change the game. And so that's super exciting for me.
Without a doubt. I hope if anyone's listening to this right now, we got to tell them, because it's more than just renewal time when you can access this stuff. Here, if you are a Highmark member, what's the best way to get started?
Best way to get started is go to the App Store and download the My Highmark app. You could also go to myhighmark.com if you wanted the kind of web version, but I think the App Store is really the easiest way in. I have My Highmark on my phone. Once you get registered, super easy. You can use your biometrics. So you never have to be fumbling around with your passwords and that type of thing. So I highly recommend doing that on your phone or your iPad.
It's a fun, easy experience. Honestly, we use it here at the Tech Council, and I can say it's the only way to experience it is to do it.
Always evolving.
And it's always evolving, which is why we have these conversations continually, because there's always something new to go on. And Stacy, I'm a little jealous because I get to have a lot of fun working too.
I know. I'm a little jealous too.
But you get to have a team of 80 people that you're working with to solve these tough problems. And I just love being able to talk a little bit about it today. So thanks for hanging out with me.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Oh, fun stuff. Hey, in case you forgot, it's Jonathan Kersting with the Pittsburgh Technology Council with Healthcare Reinvented. These are the conversations that we just cannot get enough of, because when technology and healthcare come together, when they intersect, magical, cool stuff happens, just like the stuff we talked about today. So keep on listening.